Hello, I'm Tony Vlahos for ExecuNet. Peter Bregman is a CEO advisor, leadership consultant. He's a Wall Street Journal best-selling author, and in his new release titled Leading with Emotional Courage, I hope you all can see this, he unlocks the secrets of highly successful leaders and pinpoints the missing ingredient that makes all the difference. The book has been praised by leadership guru Marshall Goldsmith, business author Daniel Pink, four-time Tony Award-winning producer Jeffrey Seller, and many others. And Peter joins me today to talk about what else? Leading with Emotional Courage. Peter, hello. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Tony. Thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure. So, Peter, let's begin with the definition, please. What is emotional courage?
Emotional courage is the willingness to feel, if you're courageous about what you're willing to feel. And it turns out that it's the underlying factor that allows us to act powerfully in the world. So if you think about, anything you want to do, think about a hard conversation that you're not having, right? That you should have, you've thought about, but you've procrastinated on. Really, you can think about anything you've procrastinated on. Think about why you haven't had that conversation, right? And I'm betting that you know exactly what you want to say, that you've had plenty of opportunity to say it, and that you're skilled enough to be able to say it. So what's holding you back isn't any of those things. And that's usually what we spend our time teaching, how to communicate, what to communicate. But the reality is what's holding us back is our unwillingness to feel something. I might have to feel embarrassment. I might have to feel your anger. I might have to feel disconnection. I might have to feel shame. I might have to feel conflict. I might have to feel failure. And because I don't want to feel those things, or I'm not so excited to feel those things, then I push off what I need to do. And underlying the ability to act is the ability to feel. If I'm willing to feel all of that, the shame, the embarrassment, the failure, everything, if I'm willing to feel everything, then I can do anything. And so emotional courage is the underlying engine that allows us to lead powerfully, to live powerfully in the world.
And why is this important in everyday work situations? I get leading in certain moments and rising to the occasion, but talk to me please about the everyday experience of leading with emotional courage.
So, I'll share that with a couple of stories. I was talking with someone who is the head of sales of a large organization, and he said that one of his top people he really needed to fire, right? Because the person he was a nice guy, but he just wasn't delivering, and it had been years. And 3 months later, we were in the same conversation. And I'm not saying it's great to fire people, but if that's what he needed to do as a leader, it was 3 months and he hadn't done it. And I said to him, what happened? Why haven't you done it? And he sort of threw his hands up and he used a different word than I'm about to use, but he said, I'm a wimp, right? He used a word I don't want to use on radio, but he said, I'm a wimp. And I said, no, you know what? You're not actually. But you're a normal human being. But it's hard. It's hard to do something like that. And so we push it off because you don't want to feel like a jerk. You don't want to feel like you're limiting this person's opportunities. But meanwhile, he and the business are suffering the consequences of not taking an action. And I could think of I could think of, people who are sitting in meetings and they have something they really want to say, and yet they hold themselves back because they fear saying it might anger someone or might upset someone else. I see the opposite all the time. I see people who are talking all the time and kind of bowling over others because they're not willing to sit and listen, because listening, turns out, takes a lot of courage to actually listen to what people have to say. And so, it's very hard to function successfully in this world without doing things that are hard. And anything that's hard is going to make you feel something. And if you're willing to feel it all, you'll move through that stuff much more smoothly.
Many of us have been taught, Peter, and have told ourselves that emotions in the workplace are taboo. What do we say to the viewers who work and live that way? Why do they need to get over that or through that?
So it's a great question, and it's a great distinction, an important distinction to make, which is the distinction between feeling everything and being a drama king or queen, right? And expressing everything, right? So I'm not suggesting that you express every emotion you have. If I'm feeling angry, I should blurt out angry things or yell or scream. I'm not suggesting that. In fact, it's the opposite. If you are unwilling to feel difficult things, you will end up being overly dramatic for two reasons. One is you're going to want to shut down stuff that makes you uncomfortable. So you're going to be very aggressive about shutting that stuff down. And the second is because if you repress things you're feeling, it always leaks out, often in passive aggressive ways, often in dysfunctional and hurtful ways, but it leaks out. And sometimes it leaks out where it's safer to leak out. So you're really angry at your boss and you yell at your employee, right? Or you get upset at your colleague because you're angry that, a client did something. And so it's messy when we're not willing to feel. So I am a huge proponent of feeling everything, right? You get that from the book and from, I think it's really, really important. But I'm not a huge proponent of expressing everything. I think you should be strategic and intentional about what you express. But you do that without repressing what's going on. So you could feel tremendous anger, and then you can ask yourself, I feel angry, I'm super angry, I feel that. What's the most useful next move to address the issue I'm angry about in a way that predisposes it to be successful? And you become really strong and strategic and intentional as opposed to kind of messy and all over the place. So I think, if we mean by emotional, you should be very emotional, meaning you should understand and feel what you're feeling, not just understand, but feel what you're feeling, then yes, you should be very emotional, but not messy and dramatic.
Right. Let's talk, Peter, about a few ways that leaders can begin to develop emotional courage. What are some practical ways that we can all start to do that?
Well, there are three ways in general that we move in the world, right? And I divide up the book into these four sections, which is confidence in yourself, connection to others, commitment to purpose, and emotional courage. And to lead effectively, and I use the word lead broadly. I mean, I work with CEOs and leadership teams and organizations. And so I know this works with senior C-level executives and organizations, but it also works with anybody. And by leading, I mean stepping into your life profoundly in a way that allows you to take action, right? That's what a leader does. And so anybody can be a leader. And it doesn't need positional power. And to really step into your life powerfully, you need to be confident in yourself. And I don't mean this sort of fake kind of arrogance that masquerades as confidence, but is really insecurity, right? Arrogance comes from insecurity. Confidence allows you to say, I don't know things. Confidence allows other people to be right. Confidence, allows you to not lose your ground in the face of criticism or in the face of, disagreement. Or politics. Like confidence says I'm solid and all of these things can be happening around me, but it doesn't shake who I am. So that's the kind of confidence that we need in our lives. We need connection to others so that we are really not leaving other people behind and not prioritizing ourselves over everybody else, because then we lose loyalty, we lose collaboration, we lose an ability to bring people along with us. And committed to purpose, which is why are we doing any of this? For something bigger than ourselves, right? And I know a lot of people who have one or another of those, but the challenge of being successful in life and in leadership is to have all three of them at the same time, and you need emotional courage for that.
Right.
So I want to give you asked for sort of a couple of things to build it. I want to give them in each of those sections. So in terms of confidence in yourself, it's very much about not losing yourself in the face of, a variety of things that could be happening around you, finding the solid you in the midst of everything else. And one thing that I like to do as an experiment around that is to allow yourself to be different than the people around you without having to change yourself in order to fit in. And you can do this by, ordering something super simple, ordering something in a restaurant that's different than anybody else is ordering. You could actually even play a little more with that, and you could tell the waiter, just bring me whatever you want to bring me, right? And allow yourself to be surprised by what comes and recognize it may be a disappointment, it may be exciting, it may be new, but can you stay connected to yourself with the uncertainty of what's going to come? I mean, these are very simple little things, but they make a difference.
Mhm.
In terms of connecting to others, it's really about appreciating and being appreciated and having clarity and trust on both sides. So maybe think of someone, send someone a text that tells them something nice that you appreciate about them, unbidden, without needing anything from them, and see what kind of an impact that actually surprisingly takes courage to do. Right? It's not, it's a little difficult for people sometimes, and different people are strong in different areas. So some people might find one thing easier and another harder. And in terms of commitment to purpose, it's really useful to, in terms of developing your emotional courage, the first thing to do is to get really clear on the 3 or 4 things that are most important to you, even if it's just for your day. And then use that as a filter, right? Which means saying no to a bunch of things that don't fit into those most important things. That takes emotional courage. So the way you build emotional courage, it's a muscle, and you build it by using it. And what I offer in the book and what I'm offering here is these like little ways to start to dip your toe into using your emotional courage that builds your confidence and self, connection to others, and commitment to purpose.
Yeah, the book, I will add, is a wonderful read. It's a quick read. It's filled with great wisdom. And I'm struck, Peter, as with all your books, just how personal you make this. And I have said to you, I've learned more about your life and your children, your everyday home life, as I've learned about the topics that you tackle. So my question is, where'd this book come from? Did it come from working directly with business leaders? Did it come from your everyday experiences with your family, or a combination of both?
Yes. Yes to
Okay.
all of it. And if you really look at all my books and all of my work over the past 30 years, I'm really fascinated and interested in helping people close the gap between what they know and what they do. We all want things, and many of us don't follow through as strongly and efficiently and powerfully as we would like to in what we know. So, I've never met a leader who doesn't know enough about leadership. Never, right? I've seen a lot of leaders not close the gap between what they know and what they do. Like that I've seen. And here's a very easy example. No leader would say it's not important to listen.
Mhm.
No leader would say it's not important to listen. How many leaders are really good listeners? Right? And the difference between knowing that you need to listen and actually listening is the difference of emotional courage.
Mhm.
Right? The only thing that stops us from listening is something that we're not willing to feel. And so, I've learned that. So everything I've done has focused one way or the other on this. And so I've learned it, and I've learned it with my clients, and I've learned it with my family. I mean, family life and children and a successful marriage, like that takes tremendous emotional courage. I mean, you
Sure.
need so much emotional courage to hear the hard stuff and to hear. And one of the things I talk about in the book is getting feedback. And I recently went to my kids and I said, I want one thing I do that you really, really like about me as your dad, and one thing you wish were different. And all my kids, I've got a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 16-year-old, and they told me. And it turns out I'm kind of funny, and they like that. And it also turns out I'm not as patient as they would like to be, and I don't listen as well, and I interrupt them, and I need to give them more space
That's
to.
a longer list than the things they really dig about,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
And I think like some people, I asked more about that list. It's probably not a good habit. Like I probably should have asked you like that. I'm like, okay, I get that I'm funny, but tell me more about this thing. Like, tell me more, because I want to get better at it. Because I want them to feel heard and seen. And it's hard because they start saying stuff, and I'm like, no,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. And I have to stop myself from saying that. And I have to just, if I ask them a question, I have to listen to the answer and really give them space. And it was great. And so like, yes, I learned this stuff in my family. I learned this stuff at work. And like everything, I write about what I want to get better at.
Mhm.
And emotional courage fits that category very well.
Well, it's a terrific topic. It's one of relevance to all of us. And as you said, it's a muscle that we need to develop. So thank you, Peter, for taking time out to talk to me. Everyone, you've got to check this out. I've got the advanced copy. It'll be available when you first see this video. And I encourage you to pick it up, learn from it, and live and work by because it can transform you. And that's our promise to you as executive members. So thank you again, Peter. And I look forward to talking to you more about emotional courage very soon. All right.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me and having this conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you.